Dan Leach back here in Chicago at the Benzinga Cannabis Capital Conference, and I'm here with my man Adam Stettner, the CEO of FundCanna. Great to see you. Having fun so far?
I'm always having fun.
Well, that's the only way you can live, right?
Yes.
Well, let's first, before we get into some amazing stuff you guys are doing at FundCanna, talk about why events like these are so important for the industry.
So we're fragmented, right? Not only because we have a federally illicit business that requires us to stay within our states, but we're all spread apart. And there are only a few events each year that bring this industry together. We have all the different verticals, people from finance, and then operators, and then you've got the ancillary businesses, all of which are present at this event. So important for us to get together, have FaceTime. Even with the advent of Zoom, we get a lot more done together than we do apart.
Yeah, Zoom is great, but when you're in front of somebody, when you're shaking hands, talking like we are right now, it just seems to really make a huge difference.
A lot of synergy.
Yeah, and now speaking of synergy, let's talk about this, because this is an incredible industry, it's an incredible space, but I wanted to discuss with you what you think the biggest challenge is, because I know what you guys are doing at FundCanna is going to help that biggest challenge, right?
Sure. So, well, look, first I'll say the largest challenge, just to get that out of the way, accounts receivable and delinquent accounts receivable.
Never a fun thing.
No, and Whitney Economics put out a report at the end of 23 that said $3.8 billion. Now, on an annual estimate of total top-line sales of only 32 million. So you've got 12% of sales are delinquent or outstanding, and that's not sustainable.
No.
So that's the largest piece. But in general, and we're going to get to our solution for that, but in general, there's a lack of access to capital for the space. When you combine those two things, it really locks the industry. It prevents growth,
right?
And
it prevents that synergy that we're talking about.
It's a very difficult situation. So for the accounts receivable and delinquent accounts receivable, we've launched a product called ReadyPaid, and what ReadyPaid does is first, let's say this. For this space, the timeline from cash outlay to revenue averages across all verticals. It averages 4.5 months. That's from cultivation all the way down to retail. So if we've got a 4.5 month revenue cycle, but you have either COD or net 30 payment terms, you have to pay for material or inventory before you create revenue. And so what that
causes, is very tough.
It does, and that is why we have a delinquency issue. You can't pay a bill when you don't have revenue to make payment. So that's broken. The other piece is the seller, when they extend net 30, they're basically extending credit without doing any underwriting. So they're releasing product and hoping they get paid 30 days later by a client, the purchaser, that doesn't yet have revenue from the product they purchased. So you have no underwriting, no credit analysis, and the buyer has no revenue from the product they purchased.
Otherwise known as a mess.
So what ReadyPay does is we sit between the buyer and the seller. We underwrite the buyer. We pay the seller on the day of sale. We still give net 30 terms to the purchaser. No cost, no payment for 30 days. But then we give them the option to elongate terms to match their revenue cycle. In essence, they can pay over time as they're selling through, or they've manufactured and created revenue off product, then they're paying us. So the seller gets paid and the buyer gets the terms that match their revenue cycle. And we believe that reduces the strain or the stress of this delinquent AR issue.
Well, how excited are you about this? Because this is a game-changing thing. It's revolutionary. As we discussed, there's so many great things about this industry, but there's a lot holding it back, like you mentioned with delinquency.
Yeah.
To be on the forefront of this is something that could really revolutionize the industry. You got to be pretty fired up.
Well, look, what I would say is I do believe that we are onto something. We've underwritten over 3,200 cannabis businesses. We've approved over $300 million, and we've dispersed over a third of that. And we see our clients grow when they fund with us. The average client has grown by over 50%. And what it tells me is the solution works. So when you say fired up, I'm excited for what I believe will come from this. But it's hard for me to be, while I appreciate the question, I think it's great. I don't want to say that I'm excited about a delinquent AR issue because I know the pain it causes.
Sure.
But I do believe we are at the forefront of something. I believe this industry will continue to grow, and it has some of the most resilient operators I've ever seen. I've been in lending almost 25 years, over 20 years. And I've originated $20 billion on my balance sheet to consumers and small businesses. And I've never seen operators with this kind of resiliency. So to be able to design financial product that meets the industry where it is and fills a need, I'm very excited about that. And I believe the solution will work for the industry.
No, it's beautifully said.
Yeah.
Listen, you're doing incredible stuff, and I'm excited to see how this works. Quickly, just take me through the next 5-10 years of the industry, and also with FundCanna. How do you see it happening?
Sure. Well, look, 5 to 10 years is a long way to look
at
out.
That golden window.
Yeah, exactly, especially in this industry, right? Because 5 to 10 years in this industry is like 70 years in any other industry. But
that's very, very well stated.
Yeah, but what I'll say is, I think we will see doubling in top line sales. We'll see a lot more states come online. Pennsylvania, Florida, two that we'll see very soon. And then right sizing. So, for example, how we license now, there's not a lot of measure of economy or supply and demand. So I think over the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to start to get it right. And that might not be the best for operators that are in areas that are overly concentrated.
Right.
But I think the stronger entities will not only survive but thrive. And then in areas where I think we're underserviced, retail as an example, I think we'll see a lot of expansion. And then in states that are coming online across the entire vertical supply chain, we're going to see growth. But again, doubling, and then I think we're going to see evolution. We've never seen two political candidates that speak. Now, I don't believe anything either of them say, but we've never seen word tracks where both candidates are aligned on cannabis policy,
right.
Which is to say legalization is the path. And so it's promising. I'm not banking on it.
But there's a chance.
Yeah,
there's a real chance finally.
It is, I feel like we're quoting Jim Carrey when we, so you're saying there's a chance.
You're saying, saying there's a chance.
So, but yes. And so to have both political parties on the side of legalization, to have descheduling already sitting, and people commenting on the same. We have more momentum for this industry than we've ever had before. You've got 88% of the voting population in favor of legalization.
Yep.
So over the next, to answer your question more directly, over the next 5 to 10 years, I think we're going to see a lot in the way of 280E evolution, really to say that it goes away, and more adoption, right? A wide adoption of cannabis as a legitimate product in the eyes of the federal government. And those are very big things.
Right.
What I will say, though, and this is not to be negative, but the idea that legalization will open the floodgates to funding, I think that that's a fallacy. And the reason I say that is I spent 15 years lending to traditional small business. Traditional small business sees approval rates from banks 20 to 25%.
Right.
Which means 75 to 80% of the time they're being declined. Now, currently, cannabis is being declined almost 100% of the time by banks.
Right.
So we have a lot of opportunity for growth, but I think that the reason I entered the space is I want banks to come in. For FundCanna to be a provider to capital, the number one provider of capital to cannabis, I want banks to enter. I want them to lend. The better and the more fluid the liquidity situation is, the better for all of us, including for FundCanna. I want to be an ally to banks and I want to be an ally to the industry. So my goal is to partner with banks. When they're lending, I'm bridge financing. I can fund in 1 to 2 days. Banks take 3 to 4 months. Right. And when they're not lending, I can service their deposit base and deposit into the banks, thereby servicing the operators and the banks that service them with treasury services. So this evolution, I'm not an adversarial player here. I will, as we evolve over the next 5 to 10 years, banking, liquidity, etc., FundCanna will find its spot and continue to grow and service the space.
I can tell you, I know many people are very grateful that you've entered this space, and I'm very excited to see what happens in the future. Adam Stettner, the CEO of FundCanna, fascinating conversation with you.
Thank you so much.
Looking forward to the future, my friend.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
My pleasure.
Yeah.